Okay, take a minute and set up your notes. Set up your paper so you can take notes. And what we're doing today, okay, so we're taking the notes on 10A today. So b10A says that you're going to describe the interactions. Oops, right. b10A. Describe the interactions that occur among systems, so we're talking body systems now, that perform the functions of, and you're going to do the following: regulation, and by regulation they're talking about responding to the environment, growing, moving, things like that. So regulation, nutrient absorption, which you guys should understand what that is. Nutrient absorption. What? Describe, oh, I left off some words. Describe the, let's see, describe, wow. Let's put this in here. Describe the interactions. There we go. There we go. So describe the interactions that occur among systems that perform the functions of regulation, nutrient absorption, reproduction, and defense from injury. Or illness. And it's in animals. That would be you. So, describe the interactions that occur among systems that perform the functions of regulation, nutrient absorption, reproduction, defense from injury or illness. And that's all in animals. So 10B is going to talk about what's going on with the plants there. Now, I'm going to put a note here, and I'm going to say, go look at 10C. And 10C we already covered, so if you flip back in your notes, because I'm sure all of you guys online have taken all the notes. If you look back here, you can find 12A, 12C, 12D, maybe there's a 10C in here somewhere. You guys find 10C? What unit? Ooh, you guys are good. Okay, so 10C, analyze the levels of organization. So we have atom, molecule, organelle, cell, tissue, organ, system, organism. We're going to stop right here at organism. I expect you guys to know this. So before the test, you guys make sure that you study over this and you know this. I think you guys knew this coming into this class, so that shouldn't be a big deal to you. So 10C is something that we've already done, and you guys should know this part. So 10B, I'm sorry, 10A is what we're looking at now. So there are 11 major systems. I'm going to grab a different color here. There are 11 major body systems. You should be able to list those off and tell me what the function is. Okay? I typically do them in alphabetical order. So there's a C, and I'm going to skip lines here. Let's see. D, there are 2 E's, excretory, 2 I's, M, N, O, P, Q, 2 R's, and an S. Is that 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 major body systems. You could actually make a mnemonic to do that, but again, for me, I just found it easiest to go through the alphabet. That's okay. You can do that down. We'll scroll it down here in just a minute. So you know the systems already. You guys do. So which one starts with a C? Circulatory, right? So we have the circulatory system. And the function, you need to know the function of the circulatory system. The function of the circulatory system is to transport food and oxygen to the cells. Number one word you should think of when you hear circulatory system is transport. Transport food and what's O2? Oxygen to the cells. And it transports wastes away. I just ran over my tab here. Transports wastes away from the cell. So it takes food and oxygen to the cells and all the waste products away. One of the waste products is CO2, right? What's CO2? Carbon dioxide, so you blow that out. So it works in conjunction with another system to blow that stuff out, right? What system does it work with? Starts with an R. Respiratory system, yeah. So it's going to work in conjunction with this. Now, it also transports hormones. Which system is the one responsible for making the hormones? Starts with an E. EN. Endocrine system. So it's going to transport the hormones, and it's typically, we know it's made of the heart and the blood, right? The heart's the easiest one, so made of heart. How would you abbreviate red blood cells? How about RBCs? RBCs. How would you abbreviate white blood cells? Yep, white blood cells. If I put RBC and WBC, would you remember that that's red blood cell and white blood cell? When you talk about the thing here. The other one I'm going to put in here are platelets. And the reason I'm putting them in there is because they really help with injury. And that's exactly what one of the things up here, defense against injury, that's what I was talking about. So red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Platelets are pieces of red blood cells that help your blood to clot. Whenever there's a cut or something, that's what they do. So basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, so we're going to transport, it does a lot of job. We're going to transport food, we're going to transport hormones, if you take aspirin, your circulatory system is going to transport it all throughout the body. So that chemicals, whatever chemicals you put in your body, you're going to get into there. So you can inject the chemicals, like if you go to the hospital, you have some type of injection, or you can eat the chemicals. If you eat them, then they have to be digested and absorbed in the bloodstream that way. So you have an interaction between the digestive system and the circulatory system. If you inject them, you've got them straight into the circulatory system in that manner, right? Sometimes, however, your body makes its own chemicals. And that's what the job of the endocrine system is, and it puts them straight into the bloodstream. So you have the endocrine system, an interaction between the endocrine system and the circulatory system there too. So you have these interactions that occur, and that's exactly what this TEK is talking about. It wants to know about the interactions. It doesn't want you to list off everything that everything does. It doesn't want you to list off all the parts. It wants you to talk about how these things interact. So in this first piece, we're going to talk about, in general, what they are, and then we'll move on from there. So the circulatory system is going to transport food and water to the cells, waste products away. Let's just take that first part here, transporting food and water. In order to be able to transport food, you've got to deal with the digestive system. So I'm going to pick another color for the digestive system here. So digestive. The digestive system breaks down materials to be absorbed by the cells. It gets rid of solid waste. Only the solid waste. That's called feces. Okay. If we're going to transport food in the circulatory system, we have to get it into a small enough particle so that it can go into the blood. So when you eat your food, part of it's going to digest in the stomach, but the vast majority of digestion occurs in the small intestine, which is like 30 feet long. As it goes through there, you're going to get tons of chemicals dumped on there. And then, as the food pieces, the particles, they break down to the molecule size, if you looked at the inside of the small intestine, it would almost be like carpet. There are blood vessels in there that make it like a carpet, and they absorb the food molecules in from the gut, from the small intestine, into the bloodstream. So that's how it gets in there. If you take Tylenol or aspirin, you swallow that, it's going to get into the bloodstream that way. It absorbs through the small intestine into the blood. So that's how it's going to transport it around, right? So when you get food in there, that's what you're going to do. You have to have the digestive system to break stuff down. You have mechanical digestion where you chew it up in your mouth, break it into smaller pieces just like a machine. And then you have chemical digestion where you're dumping chemicals on it. You know that you dump chemicals on it because when you throw up, it burns, doesn't it? That's acid. You guys all know you have that hydrochloric acid in your stomach. It burns. Have you ever thrown up so much and you throw up again, it's clear liquid? Yeah? That's a lot of that acid. It's also this other chemical called bile, B-I-L-E, bile, that the liver produces. You've got a soup of chemicals that are dumped into your stomach that are breaking down that food. So it's not just crunching it with your teeth. There's a lot more that goes into that. And a lot of it happens before it gets into the small intestine, because once it starts getting in the small intestine, then it's got to be able to be small enough to be absorbed into the bloodstream from that. So the stomach and the top of the small intestine are where the main bulk of all of your digestion, the breaking the food down happens, and then the rest of the small intestine is where it gets absorbed in there. Now, the other thing is, it also takes in oxygen, right, and transports it. So find the first R. Find the second R. Respiratory and reproductive. So reproductive comes first. So find the second R, and we're going to drop down here to where it says respiratory. So the respiratory system is responsible for gas exchange. That's it. Gas exchange means that it takes in oxygen and releases CO2, carbon dioxide. That's all it does. So again, you breathe in all the gases. Now, nitrogen is the main bulk of what you're breathing in. You just blow that back out. Remember, we have to eat our nitrogen in order to get anything out of it. So you breathe it in, and it goes down through your bronchi, down through your trachea, through your bronchi, and branches off. You guys have seen pictures of the lungs where they branch off into little, it looks like, almost like an upside down tree. Yes? At the end of those branches are these little tiny air sacs called alveoli. It has a really weird look to them. So at the end of the little branches, you have these little, they look like almost a cluster of grapes, and they're coated over with blood vessels. They have little bitty blood vessels. So if you guys hunt, have you ever, when you've gutted the animal, have you ever seen the lungs? Have you looked at it? Oh my gosh, it's the weirdest stuff ever. And I know this sounds gross, but it's cool too. So if you feel fresh lungs, they feel like bubbles. Like, like in the soap bath bubbles, they feel almost like that. You can run your fingers through them. I know, it's gross, but there it is. But if you think of it like that, and then it makes sense because they are basically little single cell layered bubbles that are there, and they're made of cells, so it's really pretty cool stuff. If you have the chance, it's interesting to look at something that's fresh like that, because you get to see what it is. Some of you guys interested in nursing or going in medicine? Yeah, I mean, you'll see stuff like that. You'll have cadavers that you work on. It's different if you work on a cadaver that's been preserved, because things don't feel the same. Kind of like if you can go to the grocery store and you can buy some weird organs, like you can get lungs at the grocery store, you can get pancreas, yeah? The sweetbread stuff, you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? You can buy organs at the grocery store, yes? And cook them and eat them, yeah? They don't feel the same once they've been frozen or refrigerated as they do when they're fresh. So things change in consistency a little bit. So the only job of the lungs, of the respiratory system, is to take in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. Once that air gets into those little bitty bubbles, those little air sacs down there called alveoli, those blood vessels that are on them, that's where gas exchange happens. So the blood on the outside, on the little vessels, they give the carbon dioxide into the little air sacs, and the oxygen goes into the blood. So they swap places. It's just diffusion. Just natural diffusion is what happens there. So they swap places, they're exchanging here. So the circulatory system has to pick up the oxygen and give off the carbon dioxide at the lungs. So your lungs have a lot of blood vessels on them. Okay, so you've got your heart, yes? You know that you have the heart and a big blood vessel going up to the head and arms, and you have another big blood vessel going down to the legs, right? Just the body. When you look at how the blood goes through the body, there's a section where it gets into the heart, it shoots right out of the heart, goes to the lungs, picks up oxygen, comes back to the heart. So it goes through half the heart, goes to the lungs, picks stuff up, then goes back to the heart, and then goes to the rest of the body. So it's set up so that the circulatory system brings stuff in from the rest of the body, goes, and specifically what's most concerned about this when it's going to the lungs is it's going to the lungs to swap off the carbon dioxide for fresh oxygen, goes back to the heart, and then gets pushed the rest of the way of the body. So your right side of the heart, you guys know the right side's a little bit not as strong as the left side, right? Correct? Do you know that? So the left side is the one that really has to give a big push on the heart to spit it out through the rest of the body, yes? The right side only has to make it go to the lungs and back. So the right side of your heart isn't as strong as the left side of your heart is. So again, you have that link between these. So we've transported the food, so we have to go to the digestive system to get the food. We transport the oxygen, we have to go to the respiratory system to get the oxygen. And then it also says it's going to transport hormones. And here we have something called the endocrine system. So I'm going to go to my first E, and I'm going to do endocrine system. Now, the endocrine system controls growth and development and responses through hormones. It's a weird one. Does all sorts of crazy stuff. Controls growth and development. Those two are kind of together, growth and development. So these two things right here are together here. So it controls growth and development and responses. That would be like responses to the environment. So it controls growth and development, responses, and regulation of the body. And all of that it does through hormones. It does a lot. Okay, hormones are basically proteins, they're chemicals, and they have, oh my gosh, this huge variety of jobs in here. So when I say growth and development, that means you growing from a baby all the way to an aged person. It's all controlled by hormones. Sometimes the hormones are leveled out, like you guys right now are hormone factories, and you have a stew of hormones in your systems right now, and they're not consistent. They're, as teenagers, it's really kind of weird. You guys ever get furious for no reason whatsoever? You're really angry for no reason. A lot of that's hormones, because the hormones you're having, sometimes it's in the process of creating those and kind of setting up stuff, so they'll spike in hormones, and then it'll drop a little bit, and then it'll spike. So it's not a nice, steady, flat line. As you get older, it becomes much more steady. It's not always, but in most cases, it becomes steadier. But as you're teenagers, your body's kicking all that stuff in, and it goes like this. It makes you insane to live around. But it's true, it does that. So sometimes you're thinking, I don't mean to be in a rage all the time, or I don't mean to do these things, but sometimes it happens. You can still control yourself, but still, sometimes that happens. For males, it levels out pretty quickly, usually in early 20s, 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there. For females, you guys obviously know you go through that cycle, so it's never going to end. It's just a cycle over and over and over again, so the hormones will range through that area. Some females it'll affect more than others. Just happens that way. Some females, when they go through their menstrual cycle, you can tell how they're feeling throughout each of the cycles. You gentlemen are going to have to live with that at some point. So you'll learn how the female in your life is. But for some female, it'll be a really obvious thing. For some females, it doesn't impact them hardly at all. It just depends on the person and the biology that's there. But the endocrine system controls the body's growth and development. It controls responses. So like your nervous system can respond to the environment, so can the endocrine system. Most of the endocrine system is a little bit slower, with the exception of something like adrenaline. Adrenaline, you guys know when you get scared, when you get angry, you get tensed up, that adrenaline gets running, right? You know what I'm talking about when you do that. Fight, get your body ready for fight or flight. That's a hormone response. So it can also respond to the environment along with the nervous system. And then it regulates the body throughout the hormones. Any type of growth that's happening, any type of anything, it's just because, you know, I'm fully grown, I'm an adult, doesn't mean that the hormones are not functioning in different ways. So you have a slew of hormones, and they each are responsible. You have hormones that are responsible for intaking calcium and maintaining a calcium balance in the body. You know, you have hormones for all of these things. So when you talk about these things in growth and development, it's not just while you're going through puberty or just while you're going through menopause or anything like that. It's a continual process. Am I running out of time? Yes. Okay, so we have the hormones here, and let's put a little bit more on here. Here are some examples of hormones. Insulin, which you guys should be familiar with. Again, that's not a puberty hormone. That's a hormone that's responsible for taking in sugar into the cells, right? And if you don't have the right amounts of insulin, your body can't take it in properly, then you have diabetes of some form or another. Insulin, adrenaline we talked about. Glucagon is in sync with, and I'm writing some of these down because some of these you'll see on the STAR test. So glucagon, testosterone. I'm going to bleed into this other place here. Testosterone, you guys know that one. Estrogen. Yes, you've heard of all those before. Yes. Okay, so once you finish writing that down, go ahead and pack your stuff up, and then we'll work on these on Monday.